So the
Wanna be
recording has started. How are you feeling, man?
trying to win the lotto, like I said, my friend. Like I
Yeah,
said.
your head is at a weird angle.
Is it?
Like you're floating.
Yeah. It's what do you call it? Um like you're talking about David Deutsch in the Facebook live.
Mm.
Remember, we never know what the truth is. All our brain does is give us a perception of reality. So
All we have are impressions.
exactly. There's a well, actually not actually I forgot. There's a Twitter post where someone actually raised this. So I
Mm.
think I think it was in America or something. It was like a tsunami
Wait,
or a flood.
let me interject. Let's kick this off properly, right?
Or
Let's give people context. Let's do a short intro, right? And let's talk about why I wanted to talk to you in the first place, right? Some context before we jump into the conversation and do intros. We tried to do this in a Facebook Live, and then we just couldn't win, right? I think part of it is Thapelo's network, part of it is
yes,
our technology illiteracy, part of it is
yes.
probably bad luck. But anyway, it didn't work, and now we're here using Zoom like boomers. And this is working because we are very comfortable in this Zoom world. Um,
Working.
anyway, I was saying on the Facebook Live that I wanted to chat to you because you're probably one of the most curious people that I know. And I was explaining how I met you, I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, at Umuzi. And ever since I met you, we've been having a long dialogue about all manner of ideas and on WhatsApp, if people could see our conversation, it's just a string of like resources, messages, and ideas about one thing or another. So, given that long conversation we've been having for close to a decade now, I thought it would be a good idea to come together and have not just one conversation with you, but have a series of conversations with you and just let's see where we land. And on the Facebook Live, I mentioned that you are probably again one of the very few people who even know who Peter Thiel is. I think Peter Thiel is an intellect that you both respect. We don't always agree with Peter Thiel, but his intellectual honesty, his commitment to truth, and his bravery in saying what he thinks is something that I think we both admire. So, welcome, Thapelo. Let's get into the conversation and let's see where it takes us. So, you can now then take it away.
Look, giving us too much credit here in the line. It's just um, I'd like to reference one of your posts you made recently on Facebook
Hmm.
about friends, right? And one of the things, because I work from home full time, and I said to people, it's good to have friends or it's good to have a community because sometimes as a person you gotta talk to people, right? You can't just live in your own head. And I
Yes.
think maybe safe spaces where you can say something, no matter how outrageous, it's important, right? And maybe sometimes with conviction, right? I think, as you say, you mentioned Peter Thiel. I think there's something he says. Um, Intelligence isn't great supply; it's the courage that we struggle with as a society. Right? He
Hmm.
was
I
he's one of the
agree.
people saying people are very smart. It's just that people don't have the courage to say, "Me, I said it."
Hmm.
10 years later, 35 years later, like if you come for me and you say, Taps, you said this thing in 2020 and it's 2055, and you say, no, no, I said it in 2020. And this was the reason I said it. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
um,
So to kick off on that note of controversy, right? And cultivating the bravery to say what we think and believe. I'm going to start with the Teal question, right? What is an important truth you believe that most people would disagree with you on?
let's ask ChatGPT.
I am happy. I am happy to go first if that
Go
makes it
first.
easier, or you can make it. So if I go first, like it's a matter of where do I start, right? But I think that the biggest one and the most shocking one is probably antinatalism, right? So David Banneter, who's a philosopher at UCT, has popularized this idea of philosophy of antinatalism. And what it is, in a nutshell, is the moral position that bringing somebody into this world causes them harm. Because if you bring a life onto earth, you are imposing life into a non-consenting being, right?
Yeah,
And there are all sorts of ideas that we have around this about procreation, having kids, and starting life. I think most people just see it as an obvious thing that you should have kids, and a good number of people don't even think about it really. I think it's just as natural as breathing to procreate. And a subset of the population that does think about it, I don't think they think about it in terms of the being that would be born. They think about it in terms of their own life goals, right? If you ask most people, why do you want to have a child? They're going to give you a reason like, oh, I want a family or I want to
yeah,
leave a legacy behind. It's never
yeah,
something like, oh, life is this wonderful thing and I want to bring a being here to experience it. So going back to antinatalism, right? So position that starting imposing life on another is maybe not morally justified because the being that you're bringing here is not consenting. And then in bringing that being here, you're exposing them to all these potential risks that you can't protect them or insulate them from, right? So even if you can provide for the child materially, so you can give them everything they want, one day, there are tragic cases in South Africa. They might go to the post office and the man hits them with the metal on the head, and has their way with them and violates them horribly. You can, do everything right, but you can't, shield people against risks like that. Things like that are not a guarantee, but they're a possibility. And in bringing somebody here, you're exposing them to those risks, and then you're gambling with somebody else's life. I would advise people to go and read David Benita's. There's an article whose name I forget, but I think it's giving birth is not life affirming. I will try to find that article and put it in the relevant places. And yeah, so that's probably
yeah,
one important truth
sure.
that I believe that I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure at least 95 of the population would disagree with me on.
yeah. Look, I think you're still on that thing. Like you're very a deep believer. There's a to answer your point inversely. I think it's in, if I'm not wrong, it's in Switzerland where they
Mhm.
have places where you can go and it's like euthanasia, legalized euthanasia. They call them
Yes,
like death centers.
it is Switzerland. I think two states in America.
Yeah, where like, but it's currently limited to people who have like what is it? What is like sort
Debilitating, incurable
of,
disease, I think.
yeah, and they I think they were arguing that it should be expanded for people to say, look, I'm done with the rat race. Right? To say, look, I've lived life like you're saying to your point. I think it argues that point for someone to say, I was brought into this life. I'm not really feeling it. Like at
Mm,
14, I figured out I'm good, or at 25 or 30.
mm.
Um, Maybe to remove it from philosophy, I'll give you one that's I think most people usually think about.
Yeah.
Mine is simply to say for people in business, at work, and whatever, democratization is the destruction of alpha, right?
Okay.
So,
Say more about that.
yeah, so the more people you have in a system who have access to something else, the
Mm.
premium that you have gets eroded away,
Okay.
right? So now, if you think about it, all businesses live inside the ego, right? The embedded growth obligations. A business must
Hmm.
get larger and larger and larger. All systems must
Yes.
get larger and
Like
larger and
like the
larger.
economy, we assume that it always has to grow, right?
Exactly. But now, the bigger sometimes some things get, you start destroying where you were making your profits or your margins or whatever. So, especially like in the tech space, people think more and more customers are good, but sometimes you just say, no, no, this thing must be kept. Right? And it's like,
Mm.
in a way, to your point, to say it's against human nature to not want to get bigger or wealthier or whatever. But
Yes.
actually, that's true. It's the hardest thing to figure out. So, what is the scale of this thing that it can be? And let's
Mm.
just leave it at that. And just enjoy the ride to death.
That's a
So I
very
think that's
interesting point, right? So, I think my interpretation of what you're saying is if you start a business, right? You have a value proposition that is focused and that's going to appeal to a certain number of people, right? And that number is not going to be the entire population. It's not going to be like the 7 billion people on Earth. It's going to be
yes,
a small group there. And you're going to start offering that. And then as you grow bigger, you're going to need to appeal to more and more people that are different from your core customer base. And in
yes,
doing that, maybe you are diluting what your value proposition is. And in doing that, you're not only not appealing to the new people that you're trying to reach, because whatever they're getting is not what they want because they are not aligned to the product, but you're actually removing value from the core customer base that came to buy this thing when it was pure in the first place, right? So if you think about Apple, I think Apple doesn't it make like 75% of its revenue from iPhones and all their other products are only 25%. So an
yeah,
argument can be made there that maybe Apple should just focus on cell phones since they do that really well and just forget
yeah.
about the streaming services and all the other things. I just got Apple TV now, and besides like one or two shows that are like worthwhile, I haven't seen the brilliance of Severance yet. I haven't seen the brilliance of Silo yet, so I'm just classifying them as worthwhile. I don't like. There's nothing much going on there.
Look, like I say, right? That's why I say democratization. Like that's why I put like that because like the inherent belief that people share to say technology by itself disseminates it gives whatever, like there's that whole lie that people like, right? There's this concept that I learned about. Someone was saying something like it's complex dishonesty, where
Okay.
people, the facts are true, but the basis of those facts are a lie. So people don't know that they're lying because what they're saying is true, but the base of what they're saying is a lie. So I was having this chat with a friend. My friend was saying, I'll give you a very simple example. He says, no, if we tax all billionaires at death, 100% inheritance tax, we could eliminate billionaires. I said, good, I agree with you. But your assumption is that billionaires will not ensure that the networks of their children continue to persevere in those wealthy
Mm,
structures. So
mm,
he was right to say if we tax billionaires all their money and they die, their
yes.
children won't be billionaires.
Yes.
But he misinterprets the fact that those people are not billionaires because they have the money. They are
Yes.
billionaires because of the network that they
Yeah.
build to increase that wealth. They will make sure that when I die at 100 billion, my child is at 200 billion in the tender system to keep it
Yes.
going on. Help me my 100 billion. But I've already done my wealth and restructuring and networks, deals, and whatever that it goes on. So
Yes.
he was honest to say, we must tax them and you can fix the wealth issue. I'm like, you're right. Factually, you are true. But the nature of this truth at its source is that very lie you cannot identify because it comes out very in a complex system that you
Yes.
are able to see that Norman, I'm being dishonest here. Because if people actually say, no, no, if we all do this thing, we're like, yeah, yeah, it's true.
Well, so I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if dishonesty is the word that I would use there.
That's why I call it complex dishonest. Because remember,
Yeah.
if you understand complexity, it says it's a system of emergence
Yes.
that cannot be traced technically to its root. I'm going to butcher the definition, but it says it's a system that emerges when no one knows where it comes from. Like, why do you have an earthquake? Well, on that day it was hot in South Africa.
Hmm.
A whale jumped out of the sea, and then boom, there was an earthquake. Right? Like that's why we're all trying to figure out how tsunamis happen. Because if we all knew how they would happen, we could all predict them with 100% certainty. So
Yes.
we're saying there are all these things that happen somewhere. When you stand, however, you at the top of the mountain, you say, no, me, I came up like this. We're like, yeah, and then you're right, you did come up this way, but did you though?
So I don't know. I think that has less to do with dishonesty and more to do with like the complexities of our causal chains, right? Like if you think about what causes any event, and you talked about a very complex event like a tornado, which touches on weather patterns, and that's hyper complex. We can look at
Yeah,
something fairly simpler, like what causes a car accident. And we can look at that causal chain, and it can be something as simple as, oh, a tire burst. But the tire
Yeah.
bursting has its own causes as well, right? Like,
Yeah,
was the
there you
tire a
go.
cheap
A
one?
simple D. You see,
Yes.
everyone says it's a simple D, so it's a tire burst.
Yes.
Great. But now you come, you say, but actually the tire was the manufacturer's problem. Was it the manufacturer that they was going through a lot? Like, I'm like,
Was it the
yeah,
road, right? Maybe like the manufacturer, the tire itself, yes, it was poor quality, but it wasn't gonna burst if it was in a better road, right? And maybe if you're driving at a speed that is lower than the speed you're driving at, so you have all these factors that compound. But before we go too far sideways, I do want to distill your response to the Thiel question, right? So
okay,
I'm not quite sure that I'm understanding what you are saying is your answer to the question. So
yeah,
try to distill that for me and simplify it.
yes, cool. So mine, I think I actually sent you an image. And I don't know if you should put it. I think one thing we should try to do is to make sure when you say stuff, we try and put the resources there so people can go on
Yes.
their own tangents and dig down. So I just sent you the thing about
Okay.
how the
Let
brain
me
works.
let me oh, you send it on WhatsApp, hey?
Yes, and on WhatsApp.
Let me
That's
open
about the brain.
WhatsApp and I am gonna share my screen. And if you have sent me anything inappropriate, then that's on you
Ah,
for
thank you, speak.
no,
Wait,
I
sorry.
don't see anything on my WhatsApp.
Okay, wait, it should come through now. Sorry. Right.
Okay, so maybe it's just loading. Yeah. But I am I
Yes.
am gonna I
Let's
am
go
gonna
to the
share that
point.
as soon as it comes through.
So I was saying to your point, right? Let's just say I wanted to make it very, very literal and something that we can all. Your antenatal question is more of a philosophical debate, and people can argue that to great length. I
Yes.
often find that 99% of the time it's easier when some people can see things. And the reason why I make this example, right? It's eerily it's a very direct question. So I don't know. Do you know Jim Simmons, who did Renaissance Technology? The guy who was like
Yes,
the
I do
founder
like
of
that investment company that has a higher return
yes,
than any other. I think the Medallion
yes,
Fund for the
yeah,
internal
those guys who are just
employees is like the
printing
best
up.
performing asset in finance, if I'm not lying.
Yeah, his fund. Yeah. So you see, that's a very good example, right? Because if I don't know why we're looking at your spreadsheet here in the line.
Yeah, this thing shared the wrong thing.
Actually, but it's good. What I'm saying is the
Anyway,
Medallion Fund
so wait, before we
is a
move
good
on,
example.
we will start sharing resources maybe at a different time. Right now, let's keep it simple. We'll try to describe the ideas the best we can.
Yeah. So this is how actually it made sense to me. Right? So the Medallion Fund is a very simple thing, right? Jim Simmons says the stock market fundamentally is a mathematical equation. It's a series equation, right? You're always trying to figure out what the next number will be.
Hmm.
That's it says. If you understand what series and sequences are, it's like the next number. You're just trying to figure out what that next number is. You can use any equation to figure out that number. Full stop. So whether you want to use
Wait,
stats,
whoa, whoa. Like I feel like we're smuggling something here. So if you're saying
okay,
to me investment is just about figuring out what the next number is, that doesn't ring true to me. Because it's not a sequence, it's not a predetermined sequence, right? It's we're
yes,
looking at all at the performance of all these assets, and then you're trying to figure
yes.
out which ones are
What
going
the
to.
next number, whether it's going up, that's the point. It's a hedge fund, right? They're either betting the number will go up or down. The
Oh,
question
it's a
for them
hedge
is what
fund.
will that
Okay, cool.
number be?
Yes. Okay, I see. For a
That's
hedge
it. It
fund,
says yes. So you're trying to figure out, you guys, that's how you're saying, you guys are trying to do all this complex stuff where you say um, the economy is good. Wow. Those are all things that you put in your equation to say, what is this number on the output?
hmm.
That's all you're doing. Economy, business, sales, satellite data. What is this number? Is it five? Is it seven? Is it 11?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
it.
Like I understand that point, but I feel like we are just ignoring complexity, right? Like what we are doing is we are saying, oh, here is a car, and all that it is is we can just describe this thing as transport. And then we forget about the computer box in the car, the engine, the gearbox, the wheels. I'm like, no, no, no. It's easy to just
You
put
see,
a
there you
label
go.
on this thing called a
But
car, but
that's the
you
point,
can't
right? To
just.
say,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the point to say. All of these things, when you now start putting computer, that's how you decide to get to the next point. If someone
Correct.
says this is a car you get from A to B, simple. Now, the reason I use Jim Simmons because when they were running Medallion, they were
Hmm.
trying to, like every hedge fund, they're trying to say the more assets under management, so the more money we get from our clients, the more money we can make. So they got a lot of money from clients. They realized when they got to about 10 billion, they started realizing we're making less money beyond 10 billion.
Hmm.
So having more than 10 billion makes us less money. So the optimal size of the fund is 10.
Was
If
that
we
just was
exceed
was that just diminishing returns or was the cause
this,
something else?
no, but it's diminishing returns. So at a certain size, you start making less money. That was there to
Yeah.
say
So
for their
maybe
strategy.
sorry, like here, I worry that we are introducing a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas without really introducing them. Like I feel like we are assuming a lot of knowledge on the
Yeah,
side of the audience. Maybe they do have the knowledge. I don't want to undermine how much they know, but at this point, I think that it would be helpful to like maybe start explaining what we mean. So I just asked you a question: if at the 10 billion point the margins are razor thin because of diminishing returns or something else. Can you just
okay,
quickly explain what diminishing returns is?
great stuff. So meaning that if diminishing returns mean that for the more resource, in this case, for the more money you put in, you
Hmm.
start getting less profit on the other side. So if I was selling at 10 billion, they were making 60% return. At
Yes.
11 billion, they started making 50 billion,
Yeah.
50%. Then at 12 billion, it went to 40. Then I realized, okay, the more money we have, it does not help us make more money return on the other side.
Yes.
So then they were playing around with this thing, say, at what optimal size of the fund does it help us make the most amount of money?
Yeah, so maybe to use a more practical example and like remove it from the financial markets. So diminishing returns is the idea that the more you consume something, the more you invest in something, the less and less what you get from it becomes, right? So an example here is let's say you start to exercise, right? So you're a person who's never
Yes,
exercised before, and then like your first few workouts, let's say you exercise once a week, twice a week, that's going to be great for your body. You're going to have more energy, you're going to develop muscle, you're going to get fitter. And the fitter you get, the less the benefit of more exercise is. Because now you are getting to a territory where maybe you're injuring your body, you're overtraining, right? So your benefit for more from more exercise decreases the more that you work out because you go past that point where it's good for you and it starts being bad for you. It's like that too much of anything is poison, right?
yeah,
So if you drink like again a glass of water, that's good for you. But if you drink 10, so that water hydrates you, it goes to the vital organs. But if you drink 10, 20 liters, then you get water poisoning. I think that's
yeah.
an intuitive way
That's a
to
fair point.
explain and understand diminishing returns.
That marginal returns, yes. So now that's what I'm trying to say now. Now let's take the whole thing I said. Now, if we democratize something, right? I don't
Hmm.
know if democratizing means that we're now it's a symbol like it's democracy. We're now
Hmm.
saying the system is no longer exclusive, it's no longer apartheid. We have
Yes.
everyone coming, right?
Yes.
Everyone can now interact with that very system.
Yes.
Now, the reason now, I reason that's why I say technology is a very large problem in this because the premise of technology says you're giving access to more people at a lower marginal cost,
Hmm.
right? So we're now saying, okay, cool, that's fine. But now, because the reason why I say this is because now in investments, because you introduced Peter Thiel, to say this is a very good point to say, investors then say, we want this hyper infinite growing thing.
Mm.
Like you made examples of apples and whatever. I say, no, look, I gave you 100 billion
Mm.
and I'm expecting 10x. The only way I can give you 10x return at 1 trillion, it means now I must open the aperture even larger. So the
Correct.
people who would not be coming here, I must now start to invite them.
But what's the problem with that? So you've
There
described
is
the
no problem.
thing. I hear the
There is no
setup.
problem. What I'm
So
saying is, you are
mhm,
now getting to a point where now, let's say, it's this destruction of that alpha, that margin, that beautiful returns that you had
mm,
starts being destroyed because what you're now starting to do is you're taking profitable money to
mm,
pay unprofitable people.
correct. I see.
In,
It's
in
like the
the
bureaucracy
in
of
the
government.
notion, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. In the notion of democratization, and
Yeah.
let's not call it an ego, it's an embedded growth obligation.
Wait, let me counter that, right? So, I think what you're describing here is the law of diminishing return at scale, right? And I would
Yes.
argue that like you go a long way before you run into that problem. Again, to use my exercise example, right? A lot of people, even people who are active at the gym, are actually at no risk of looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Because you get this thing
Correct.
where people start going to the gym and they see Arnold Schwarzenegger, they're like, I don't want to look like that. I'm like, no, no, no. You need to be working out for like 1,000 years, eating
Yes.
properly, and eating clean before you can even like approach looking like that. So
Great.
going back to your context, right?
Positive.
So
Positive.
you need to go
Positive.
very far before like this is not a problem that like in a lot of
Ego.
contexts you're gonna
Some
encounter.
saying
Mm,
that's a good point.
mm.
You can get there naturally after 1,000 years.
Yes.
We agree. Now, if I say to the gym guys, dude, here's some steroids, here's
Yes,
some
yes, yes,
this, some
yes.
that, I artificially, that's what I'm saying now, because now we're almost was getting that lineup for himself because it was a
Mm,
premium service, the
mm, mm,
dietitian, the Roy's, the whatever. Because it was premium, he could do that and be like that himself.
mm,
I'm now saying to you at the gym, you can all be like Schwarzenegger if you download my app and sign up for this service.
mm, mm.
Overnight, I've moved the guys at the gym from moving at 100 years to 5
Yes, because
because
and
I've
also
opened up a
yeah,
wider.
I see, and in doing that, you are introducing negative elements into the ecosystem, right? And you are not seeing that you are doing that because the KPIs that you are using to track that is just muscle growth. You are not thinking about their overall health. So I think it was Charlie Munger who said something like, if all you care about is market share, you can destroy a company. It's like if you told me to grow Kellogg's in his book, Poor Charlie's Almanac, I can do it and get 80% market share, but I'm sure that I'll destroy Kellogg's
That's what I'm saying.
in the process.
That
Yes.
democratization is a destruction of others. I literally limited it to this point to say I want to make it as very identifiable as possible.
Yeah.
But in doing that, you can expand it to anything. You see this like largely, that's what I'm saying. You see this largely in anything you interact with, right? You sit
Mm,
in a company, you look and you say, guys, if we hire 4 people for this role, we're good,
mm, mm.
right? But in other sense, no, no. My embedded growth obligation is to say, if I am only running 4 people, Thapelo is running 30 people. Thapelo looks like a better manager because he's hiring 30 people. I
Yes.
only got 4.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you know what does Dinani do? He literally balloons the entire department. Now he's got 100 people, which is great for his growth metric and his growth obligation.
Mm.
But now he's still destroying what made that team of 7
Destroying
people.
value. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a team that there's those teams where, like you've seen this a lot of times. There are those teams like 4 or 5 people. When they move, they always move together.
Mm.
That company A, one person like, I dude, this company is no longer a jive. Let's move. The one guy goes, gets a job somewhere else. These guys, he fetches them, they all go there. They're always like in a very tight-knit group. They never dilute that thing. It's like you can sit at our table, but you're not one of us.
Mm. Mm.
Like there's a hurdle rate.
Okay,
That's very
so
high.
so wait again. So we are on the free Zoom plan, and we just got that notification that like it's we are left with like 10 minutes, and that was like 1 minute 30 seconds ago. So now it's 8 minutes 29 seconds that you left with.
5 minutes
And
left.
I still want you to explain this idea in very simple, intuitive terms, right? Because
Yes.
you start getting into it and then you inject complexity in it again. So give
Okay,
me
cool.
a very
Simple.
simple
Very simple.
explanation of this idea that you are
I
trying
have.
to describe here.
Thank you so much, Delani, for this.
Hmm.
Great. I will simply put it like this: more does not always mean better.
Yes.
Um, less in some instances and kept level of something could be the best level of what something is.
Right. Great. That is simple to
Boost.
understand. But there's a very interesting question here that arises. How do I identify the point where I'm approaching negative returns, right? So how do I know if, like if I earn one more rand, I'm just gonna be living life of debauchery and indulgence. How do I see that point approaching?
And that's true. There is no answer.
Okay, say more.
That's the truth. There is no answer
Mm.
because all circumstances are different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I gave you the 10 billion guys, they realize that after testing it, you at the one rand, you got to test it for yourself. And it's in Poor Charlie speaks of mindfulness. Like I hate the word, but to say it's
Mm.
literally just you sitting down on a Sunday and saying, deep, deep, deep. Nah, this amount of stress increase is not proportional to the growth. I'm
Right.
out.
Right.
And
Okay.
the truth is, you have to figure it out yourself. Whether you're a business, whether you're a
Sure.
person, whether you're a relationship,
Sure,
whether you're a
fine.
team, like
I, I,
you,
I buy what you're selling. You need so you can't have a one size fits all answer. All domains are different, and what works for one domain is not gonna be universal, right? But then you still haven't given me an approach to the analysis, right? So yes, I am in my unique domain and I need to do the hard work of figuring it out. But how do I start thinking about it in any domain? And I'm happy for you to use an example. I'm happy for you to say with
wait,
relationships, this is how you apply it. With
I
business,
actually have a
this is
good
how you
answer for
apply
you for this one.
it.
That's a very good answer. Use a very simple word there. Thinking. Literally, like that's all you need to do. Think. There's no shortcut for it. Like you can have ChatGPT there for you, but you just gotta do the simple thing. Think.
Sure.
Just
Again, you're over
think.
you're oversimplifying. So say I'm here thinking, it's possible
We've
to
got less than
think
5 minutes,
it's
Rani, but
sure.
we're gonna wrap this up. Let me wrap this up simply.
Wait,
There
let me
is
make this
no
point.
bullet for this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You just gotta do it. Like there's this. I've got this thing. I call it like a third. You gotta read, you gotta think, and you gotta do. Do the reading, but do more thinking than you do reading, but do more
Yes.
doing than you do thinking and reading.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. But let's say, let me make an absurd example. I join a super weird cult, right? A
You would,
cult
bro.
who that's not grounded in reality, right? Like this cult believes that like the ultimate goal of life is, let's say, to I don't know, have as much unsafe sex as possible. Flippant example, right? And I could sit there in a mountain thinking about this for 1,000 years. Maybe I might reach some happiness, but that's not a good formula for happiness to me. The point that I'm making is the fact that I'm doing the action of thinking doesn't mean that I'm thinking about the right things. And actually, the more thinking I do in some instances, the more damage I can do. Let's say again, conspiracy theorists. I don't think that like the more thinking those people do, the better the direction they're headed in is, right? So that's where I think maybe let me bring it back, right? So the thinking works as long as you have the right epistemology. So epistemology is like in philosophy, the study
Forcing
of what is
function. Let's
valid.
call it a forcing function.
Let's
Let's
call
simply
it
call it a forcing function.
A.
Forcing function. You can think, but there has to be something that forces you to test it against as quickly as
Correct.
possible.
Yes. Test. So test against reality. But also there's a challenge there about what is real and what is true. And you see, now we're getting very deep into the weeds of philosophy. And maybe we can't clear those weeds and untangle them now. But yeah, so the act of thinking
Question.
alone doesn't get you there. There's something else you need to do. So yeah, so this conversation didn't quite go the way that I expected, and this is typical of us, right? We start talking about something, and then we get more and more and more and more granular, and then the overall arc
So
of the conversation
I'll,
gets
I'll
lost.
share I'll share two parts. Then I think this is it to wrap it up in 30 seconds. One, there's something called the Balmol curve or the
Mhm,
Balmol effect.
mhm,
Simply saying at certain levels of cost, there are certain things that do the same thing. So, for example, if you wanted a good job 100 years ago, you joined the military. Today, you can get the same level of the job at Starbucks, right? Like you're getting the
Yes,
same benefits, but at lesser intensity.
true.
Two, superstar economies, right? To your point, to say superstar economies, like there's one person that wins all the lion's shares of rewards,
Yes.
and like other ones, everyone else suffers. Those are two resources I will share and put
Yeah.
there. Start
Actually,
this conversation. And then
so
the third
so
one, we'll put what is complexity.
yeah.
Throw it in there. They'll be my three commitments. That's it from my side to wrap this thing up.
Interesting,
Because
interesting way to
to
end
tell your
off.
point, to say, I think because me and you were always talking, so there's a lot of the conversation is carrying on from where it was on WhatsApp to here to there to there.
Yes, we have the
I think
context.
that's what I'm saying. It should be very important to put all these resources there, and then
Mm.
everyone can enjoy. So that when we have some of these conversations, they are continuous, and everyone should read the beginning of Infinity
Yes,
as a life
everyone. So
changing.
so that's the thing. Like as you are
That's
mentioning these
it.
things, you're saying you're wrapping up, but you're actually expanding.
That's why I say I'm
'Cause-
putting the resources because I guess it's going to be another conversation. When we have the other conversation,
Yes.
then it'll be easier because some of the base load work would have been shared, and it helps it flow better.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
cool.
just my
Yeah,
own
so
take.
so so I don't think people have the chance to read and digest the beginning of Infinity before our next conversation.
No, no, no.
But
That's not for
that
now. That's like a lifelong lesson.
yeah, there is a lifelong lesson. But I do want to say that, like, one thing that we have to talk about, like in our next podcast or maybe in subsequent podcasts, this idea of superstar economies, right? Like, that's fascinating because I think it goes to probability and everyday probability that we need to just like lead our lives, and people get it wrong. And I do think that like we can talk about like probability in our lives and how to think well probabilistically so that like we can get the outcomes we want. So yeah, let's flag that as a topic of our next
Yeah,
discussion.
it's a 45-page document, so let's give time to read it. I will share it. It's a really nice read. Like you're right. Power
Yeah.
laws and whatever, great stuff.
Yes, power
I'm,
law.
I'm
Yes.
there. I'm
Tons
there.
of concepts to explore further. Thank you, man. Enjoyed the
Thank you.
conversation.
I'll literally next time buy a new router and a new Wi-Fi and a signal booster. Cheers,
Good man.
man.
Cheers.
Cheers.